Ring, ring. Hello? Is this Arnold Kunst? Yes, it is. Mr. Kunst, my name is Joseph Dokes. I am the events coordinator for the 2014 National Association of Widget Manufacturers Convention to be held at the Waldorf in New York City. And I'm calling to see if you are free on the weekend of 14 April 2014. Would like you to give a keynote address of 1 hour on Lead Like Lincoln and a 45-minute breakout session on the wit and wisdom of Abraham Lincoln. Mr. Dokes, I checked my calendar and I am in fact free that weekend, and we'll have a firm contract as soon as I forward my questionnaire to you and you return that along with a signed contract and a deposit for 50% of the speaking fee. And that your budget for that fee is? We budgeted $10,000 for that speech. Mr. Dokes, we have a deal when we have a contract and a $5,000 deposit. My friends, I've got good news for you and bad news for you and good news for you. The good news is I am in fact free that weekend. The bad news is that conversation that I just described, strictly speaking, hasn't quite happened yet. The good news is I'm a lot more ready now than I was a year ago. And what I'd like to do is explain some of what's happened to make that being ready be a reality.
All right.
I spent 13 years teaching in a state prison. I retired in December of 2010. It does things to you when you spend your whole working day in a room filled with convicted felons. And one of the things it does is require occupational therapy. Okay? So I wrote the book. I wrote the book because Lincoln, who is my subject of choice, had such a unusual, surprising impact on my students. I would give them a writing prompt. This is how it really started. I more or less stumbled into it. As our situation is new, so we must think anew and act anew. Abraham Lincoln. You're never too old to grow younger. Mae West. And I put those two quotes on the board one day, and my guys came in and I said, okay, you got 10 minutes. Tell me what happens when those two quotes bump into each other inside your head. And some of them would write a paragraph, and some would write a bunch of sentences, and some would write a string of words, all generously endowed with what I call creative spelling and punctuation. But I began to notice with some right away, with some it took a little longer, a change took place. They were like potted plants that had been shunted off into a basement mindlessly. And then they're exposed to a little sunlight and moisture. And this is what happened. That, by the way, is a fast-forward action replay. Didn't happen with all of them, obviously. The default position of a convicted felon is mindless and endless sullenness, anger. It's a default position. Ugh. But it did change them. So I started writing my book, basically stringing together those quote, counter-quote things, into a book called Lincoln 365, which is calendar-based. You start today with today's entry. Don't go goofy and read a whole bunch. Take 365 days to get to yesterday's entry. You'll be more like Abraham Lincoln. And I published that book. Well, that's a bit ambitious. I went down to Kinko's and did 100 copies, just a Kinko's knockoff. Paid $965, okay? And I thought, I wonder if anybody will buy this. It certainly seems to have made an impact on my students. So I would take days off, vacation days, and go up to the Friends of the Library in Auburn and give a talk on, I think the first talk I gave there was Lincoln as role model. And they actually bought some of my books. In fact, in the first 6 months, I sold 65 of them by doing that, taking days off, vacation days, whatever, doing it on Saturdays, and going around giving talks at the YOLO Republican Club and so on, just various Rotary clubs. Rotary clubs became a kind of a favorite after a while because they're so well organized and efficient. And in November of 2008, just before the fall conference for District 39, we had a guest speaker. My club is Sutter Toastmasters. We meet across the way at the Cancer Center on Friday morning at 7 o'clock. So from 7 to 8, we very often will get speakers come in who are speaking at this fall or spring conference because we're nicely positioned the day before that conference is held. And the speaker that year was Darren LaCroix. And I came into our Sutter meeting, and to be honest, I wasn't even aware he was going to be there. He had a display in the room with all his, it was a very elaborate professional display, CDs and so on. And he gave this just drop-dead presentation. His mantra is stage time, stage time, stage time. He's this mousy little guy who wouldn't say boo to a goose, and he wanted to be a comedian, and he was about as funny as I don't know what. People who call you on the telephone at 6 o'clock at night to sell you something. But he made himself a comedian by just doing it a lot, And he resonated with me right away because in 2002, I cycled from San Francisco to Los Angeles on an ACE fundraiser. 585 miles. We left Fort Mason at 6:30 on Sunday, and we were in Dodger Stadium for the closing ceremony at 4 o'clock on the Saturday. I was at least 50 pounds overweight. I was 61 years old, and all I needed to do was make the pedals go around a lot. That's all you need to do. And stage time is the same thing, isn't it? It is just another way of doing it. He and I were soul brothers right off the bat. We went to breakfast over here at Bernardo's, and I tentatively said to him,
attention please, EEG technician, please call the hospital operator.
I could make Abraham Lincoln a going concern. I could be a paid professional public speaker on this topic. And he said, contact some clubs, contact some organizations and see what happens. Because if they say no, you're no further back than you are now. Wow. And that little bit of encouragement was all I needed. And actually, that story really should have gone before, because that's when I really got going on the Auburn Library and the YOLO Republican Club. I, by the way, am a Democrat, and it was a very unusual experience speaking at a barbecue in a park in Woodland for people who were dyed-in-the-wool Republicans. I don't associate with Republicans normally. So it's been a very mind-expanding experience just doing this. After a while, I decided I needed exposure to the big boys. You only become like the people you spend your time with. And paid professional speakers, well, that's the National Speakers Association. That's the name of that organization. It's the most prestigious organization of its kind in the country. And I decided I would look into joining that organization. Well, you don't just throw a bunch of money at them, although it does cost you to join, $600. You have to qualify to join. And you qualify to join. There are 3 ways, and the way I chose was 20 paid gigs in a year. And I decided also to spend $2,000 for the privilege of learning the business of public speaking. So I joined what was called a ProTrack class in January of 2011. I drove every month, one Saturday, all day long, to Burlingame, just outside of the San Francisco International, and drove back. So 11 Saturdays in that year, talking about the business of public speaking, and also giving these talks. It was my first year of full retirement. I retired the previous December. And I spoke mostly at Rotary clubs, and I would call a Rotary club and say, are you interested in a talk entitled The Wit and Wisdom of Abraham Lincoln? And anybody who's going to say, that is really dorky, they don't exist, okay? Everybody's fascinated with this man. It was a very easy question for people to say yes to, and basically they said yes. And then I would say, what I just told you, I want to get into this National Speakers Association, and to do that, I need 20 paid gigs. So I want you to give me a check for $5, and I'll give you a $5 bill for it. I don't care how much the money is, and they don't care how much the money is, but it needs to say, Lincoln presentation or, speaker fee, whatever, on the check, and then I just photocopy the checks, send them off with the application form. Simple.
It sure is.
So I did that 20 times, just like making the pedals go around, okay? Just 20 times. To Rotary clubs, historical societies. I've spoken twice to the Rockland Historical Society up in Rockland, The Wit and Wisdom of Abe Lincoln. And then they got back to me and said they were very proud of the fact that they meet in this revamped church. I don't know, they spent just thousands of dollars redoing this church. And it has this lovely wooden floor. And seemingly when they made the film The Conspirator, or is it Conspirators, the Robert Redford thing? Mm-hmm. You may remember that. When John Wilkes Booth jumps to the stage after shooting the president, that's the floor he jumped to. Okay? So they were just over the moon that they were in this fancy Robert Redford movie. Mm-hmm. And could you come back and tell us about the Mary Surratt case? Mm-hmm. So I went back there later on and I told them about the Mary Surratt case. And so it's been fun that way. I've spoken at libraries. My first library was actually a freebie, but the next one wasn't. It was actually $200. I got a fee for $200. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go through my little bag of tricks here, because this is kind of like the format for this talk. And let me see here. Whether you become a paid public speaker or not, I'd suggest you get yourself a Warm and Fuzzies file. This is my Warm and Fuzzies file, because every now and then somebody says you're really dumb, or, why don't you go play in the freeway, or words to that effect, right? And I need to know that there are people in my life, either today or August 16th, 1964, golly. May 16th, 1968. This is from my piano teacher, this first one. I was going through a tough patch. This is from a parent of 2 children I taught piano lessons to in Frankfurt, Germany. And so on. Bishop Francis Quinn's got a letter of recommendation in here. Hospice, comments from the hospice person. Get yourself one of these, whether you become a paid public speaker or not. Because people tell you nice things about you and you forget it. Print it out, put it in here. It's real simple. There are all these Toastmaster things and first place and this and that. Some of my speeches. Anyway, get one of these. Things from my children. That was from one of my students. As a birthday present. They heard that my birthday was coming up. Latino guy. So, anyway, get one of those. Let me see, is there anything else I want to say about the... Yes, since I qualified, I sent the check off for $600 along with all those verification of all those 20 checks that I got. So I qualified for membership. I'm now a full-fledged member of the National Speakers Association. If you look that up on the website, you know, my name is on the list and you can click and there's my website and so on. And it's important to play with the big boys. I met a guy with a very thick Brooklyn accent. Brooklyn, blue and blue. And and it looked to me like he had probably dropped out of school as a sophomore in high school. Like a stevedore or somebody. But the number 15,000 trips off his lips like water goes downhill. And he said, you want to make a business out of Lincoln, what you need to do is show what Lincoln would do as a CEO in the 21st century. Sounds good to me. Yeah. And I'm doing wit and wisdom. So, I mean, there are things that I need to do that, okay? Somehow I've got to make that the calling card. Right. I also rub shoulders with a guy who, and he didn't tell me what he had to do to earn it, but signed recently a check for a contract for $35,000. He's, I think, first generation Chinese American, and he deals with the subject of selling to minorities. And are there a lot of minorities in this country? Say yes. Yes. There sure are. Selling to minorities and how you can screw it up. And on his webpage, it says, take the test to see whether you qualify. So they ask some questions and show some little things, and how would you react here? Whoop, beep, and you screwed it up. Right. So you're driving people away, and you don't even know it. Right. But if you sign on with me, and now he's kind of like subcontracted this thing out. He's like McDonald's, right? He's got the franchise thing. Yeah. If you want him, you pay big bucks. But you can hire some of his people, and they're pretty good too. So he can come in, he can send his people into your sales force, and whether you're selling real estate or, you know, cars like Victor or whatever, he'll help you out, okay, for free. And he's written books and pamphlets and workbooks and, you know, CD-ROMs and on into the night. And I never met people like that in Sacramento. I don't know that they exist. But they do down there. San Francisco is the public speaking capital of the West Coast, or at least Northern California. LA is pretty good too. In June, how am I doing for time? 20 minutes. In June of last year, I heard that Darren LaCroix was going to be giving a master class to a Speakers Bureau club in the Los Angeles area. I am not a shy person. I picked up the phone, I called him up, okay, if I come, I'll drive down, I'll drive back, I'll just come down. So I drove, he said, sure, fine, that's all right, everybody else is coming there, it's a freebie. So I went along for one Speakers Bureau gig with Darren LaCroix running this master class on how to be a paid professional speaker. Took my notes and so on, kept track of the mileage, okay? And I contacted one Rotary Club in just outside of Thousand Oaks. So on the way back, I think it was, I must have done it on the way down. I drove down, spoke at this club, 23 people, they bought 3 books, which is about an average. I keep track of this thing, and I usually sell to about 10% of my audience going to buy my book. And then I went to Darren's thing and came back, and he was doing it again in July. So this time I contacted more Toastmaster or Rotary clubs, and there are a lot of Rotary clubs in the greater Los Angeles area. I contacted just a boatload of them, as well as some libraries, and because I thought, well, I spoke at one library, and yeah, I could speak. It's my natural habitat, right? Because they go to libraries for books.
Right.
So I'll sell maybe 25% to a library crowd, and that's how I got my big gig in November. But this was in July, and I went down and I spoke to 2 clubs and went to his 2 meetings. On one day, he did a lunchtime thing in one place and an evening thing in another place. And I stayed overnight and drove home the next day. And it doesn't knock a feather out of me that I drive the miles. Because if you're not prepared to pay the price, there's no, what are you kidding yourself that you're going to somehow have it pieced together? It's not going to happen. You got to pay the price. So it's okay. I drive the miles. I don't mind driving. And in November, in the course of all that negotiating for those, I wanted to get as many Rotary clubs down there as I could to, kind of offset the cost of this thing. I got onto a Rotary club from a little town called Moore Park. I don't know whether you know it. It's near the Simi Valley. And they said, guys, funny you should mention Abe Lincoln, because we sponsor our major fundraiser for the year is a Civil War reenactment in November. Would you like to come down and speak to our club before that reenactment and then be part of the reenactment? Just take out a booth. Well, I had never thought about, I suppose I had heard about these things. I get a life. I mean, this is, 2012. Like, what are you doing dressed up like, some Confederate naval person or whatever? I mean, get into today. It's my first and last time I've done that. I haven't gone after that market since then, for whatever reason. But it was a quite a remarkable experience. And I also scotch taped a whole bunch of other Rotary clubs into that week, because I was going to be there on the 11th, the 12th, and 13th of November. Could I do anything before that? Okay. Or maybe after that. And as it happened, I spoke 10 times, plus a weekend, plus in 8 days. I went down, I spoke, my first talk was in a Rotary club at noon in Modesto, spent the night, and then the next meeting was a 7 o'clock meeting, a sunrise meeting at a Rotary club in the Los Angeles area, I forget where. I was staying in Buena Park. And I sold 29 of my books, plus some of my CDs. I had a CD made. That's another thing I would be doing differently. The CD I made, The Wit and Wisdom of Abe Lincoln, got it in here. Here it is. They were fairly inexpensive, and I had 500 copies made. Too many copies. And now I'm looking at all this boxes of CDs in my closet. I would have made a lot fewer, because I thought they'd sell like hotcakes, and they haven't. I haven't sold like hotcakes. So scratch up one mistake. What else do I need to tell you about? In February, I went back again, because I got the libraries, when I was contacting all these places, some of the libraries said, well, we'd like to have you come. And it was a beautiful library at Thousand Oaks, Hagen Gardens of Babylon Library, parking lot that just went on forever, okay? Trees and just architecturally interesting, well landscaped and everything. Money coming out their ears. And that was for $200. In fact, I don't even know how we got to that number. I think I kind of stumbled into it. And maybe if I had been a little bit more subtle or a little bit more sophisticated, it could have been 500 or whatever. But I figured 200 was fine, especially when she said, well, we have another library in our district, and would you like to do both on the one day? So, sure. So there was that Saturday that was going to be $200 followed by $200. Okay. I think it was 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, something like that. They're like 5 miles apart. So I stacked up a bunch of more Rotary clubs. And I mean, I'm just paying my price, right? I'm learning how to say President of the United States and Secretary of State are walking down Pennsylvania Avenue. So, I mean, I just put a nickel in and I'm good to go. Okay, on that topic. That Saturday, I made $700. Two $200 checks, plus the sale of my books. I sold 15 books. I didn't sell any CDs, but my books sell at $20 a pop. I had 500 copies printed in November. At the same time, I had 500 copies of these. I brought all my books and all my CDs to Los Angeles in November, thinking I would sell out, and I didn't sell out. But yeah, I didn't want to get there and run out. Okay, but I didn't bring quite that many. I didn't bring that many in February when I went back. And since then, well, let me. I've gotten some mail. I was gone 3 days, Monday and Tuesday of this week, speaking in 3 Rotary clubs in the Santa Cruz area, and Thursday and Friday of this week, speaking in another 3 clubs in Silicon Valley. This is the format I use. I do the mileage from one place to another. Palo Alto University Rotary, 68 people. I sold 7 of my books. I sold 4 of my CDs. Later in the day, I went off to Saratoga Rotary. There were 40 people. Sold 3 of my books. 1 of Darren's books, Laugh and Get Rich, and 1 of my CDs. I grossed $335 for those 2 days, and it cost me, I think, $70 for a hotel, and I had to buy 1 meal. Okay. I'd also suggest, so there's that format. Somewhere along the line, somebody said to me, keep a stories file. So whenever something happens, write it down. And I printed out some of my story file. My story file is 42 pages long. Mozart and cutting meat. Secretary of State lives in a narrow world. That tells me what the story is. I know what to say about that story. Suzuki taught kids to bow first. Do you know who Suzuki is? Taught violin to small children. First thing he would teach his students at age 4 or 5 was how to bow. Smart man. Covey tells the story of running across a father and his kids in a subway car, blah, blah, blah. So I would suggest Barry and the Jigsaw Puzzle, great story of my son. Get yourself one of these story files. Write this down. Google this topic, speaker request for proposal. Speaker request for proposal. Google that topic. One of our homework assignments was open at least 3 documents and read them. What are they looking for? How could your topic fit? And what research could you do to have a better understanding of the requirement? Print out 1 document in a PDF form and email it to me by October 7th. We will use these in our discussion This was the assignment given in September for the October ProTrack meeting. Okay, it's one of the things we needed to do. This, I don't know, have you ever heard of Square Up?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know what that is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Fits into my cell phone? Okay.
No.
On Monday and Tuesday, I sold $100 worth of product by credit card that I wouldn't have gotten those sales if I hadn't brought this along. Okay. They took 2.75%.
It's all good.
I'm getting close to the end here. Priority mail. This is from Angel Vision. Write that down. Angel Vision. ANGELVISION. I'm probably not going to go with them, but I would look this crowd up. They're super. I've hardly even opened this thing and looked it up because this is a very busy week. I drove like about 1,000 miles this week, and I'm kind of tired. But I need to look at this. But I probably am not going to do anything with it. They do a program where they video you and get what you would have on your one sheet, but they put it in a form that's designed for the attention span of a 7-year-old. Okay,
Sure.
so it's all these just super graphics,
Right.
things blending in, and you're saying the words and you see the words appear on the screen. All that kind of really cutting edge stuff. All kinds of awards they've gotten. And those 3.5 minutes are yours for $10,000. And I don't know that I want to spend that kind of money because I think it would give me too much exposure and too much success. And I want to spend more time with my grandchildren. So I'm probably not going to go with it. But
84119.
there isn't anybody in this room at 71 like I am. If I were you, I would take a look at this company. And if you've got the courage of your convictions and maybe got a couple of bucks, I do have the money. I've got some of the money because I spend money very frugally, like buying cars. I'm sorry, Victor. I always buy them in the paper and always point out all the mistakes that they're there and make the guy feel bad and then offer him cash, okay? Because people's heads get turned with a stack of, $100 bills that's this tall and there's 68 of them. And that's all I'm going to give you. But you don't have to come here to take time off your lunch. I do all that. Anyway.
Angel Vision?
Angel Vision, yeah.
Okay.
Voices of Experience by Brian Walker. Oh, I need my glasses. I can't read. This print's too small. Building and Community, Protecting the Biz, PowerPoint, What's Your Speaker, Selling the Biz, Program, Platform Power, The Journey. Those don't say nearly as much as the actual content. I get that once a month, once every other month, along with this magazine, the National Speakers Association magazine. This is not like Toastmasters International magazine. Reality Check, Putting a Fine Point in the Speaking Industry. Welcome to My World, a snapshot into the lives of people who hire speakers, $1 Million Ideas, winning money-making strategies, relevant resources, time-saving tools and technologies, and so on. It's just super. This is not like Toastmasters magazine.
Right.
Toastmasters is a very different animal.
Right.
Okay? If you want to be a paid professional public speaker, get serious. Put your money where your mouth is. Here's another thing I got during the week that I hadn't had time to look at. This is from a crowd called Associated Bag. And as you can see, there are various kinds of plasticky bags because I have joint venture operations. Here's my CD. Here's my book. Here's Jaron LaCroix's book. And here's Lead Like Lincoln, which is seemingly Bill Clinton went goofy about this in 1992 when he was elected. So how do I package all these things together? I am told that if you want to sell, you sell in packages. You just sell a package. So maybe I should have a laughter pack, with these three, or a leadership pack with these three, or whatever, or an omnibus pack with all of them. And I give a discount if my CD is $15, my book is $20. But if you buy them together, it's $5 off. And if you buy 3 things, it's another $5 off. So it's $10 off. There's something I missed here. All major sports teams have coaches. If you want to play in the big leagues, get a coaching. If you want to be good, hang around those who already are. So, something here I left out. Oh, it's for my blog. These are the people that have signed up for my blog in the last little while. I got a couple of pages of that. And there's one thing I wanted to. Here's my evaluation form, and I can't find it. It should be here somewhere. It's things I have. A thing I have on my bathroom mirror. No, I can't even remember them, and I'm getting kind of panicky because he's going to tell me it's time. How much time do I have?
Oh, you're past.
Well,
I'm
moving.
sorry.
I never even saw it. I'm
No.
sorry. Okay, listen, I'm going to stop now, and I don't know whether you want to ask questions or what kind of format you want for this, but
I know Brenda wants to keep going, but if people have questions, maybe we can talk to you afterwards.
okay, sure,
Yeah.
that's fine.
That'd be great.
Thank
Yeah.
you.